So welcome. In this session, I'm going to cover working with absentee owners, real estate investors. Sometimes I call them reluctant landlords. You know what? This is really a great opportunity to work in a market, in a niche market that quite frankly, realtors completely overlook. I told this story earlier. I'll tell it again. If I'm in a group of 250 people that I'm talking to, I ask them, how many of you own rental property? 20 of them will stand up. How many of you consistently have a realtor that markets to you? That gets down to 5. And when I ask them to tell me who the realtor is, maybe 1 or 2 people out of that whole group can even remember a realtor. You know why? Because a realtor's not having a conversation that's actually interesting to these homeowners, and they don't do it on a consistent basis. Typically, they're just sending the homeowner something that says, I have a buyer that's available to purchase your home if you're thinking about selling it. Look, this is a gold mine. Now, I'm going to tell you that to some extent, working absentee owners, whether you're doing it in your own geographic farm, which really makes a lot of sense, or you just decide to work absentee owners, it's probably a little bit more of a long-term commitment before you're going to get real business, because your goal isn't to just find out if they're interested in selling. It's to build a relationship so as they buy and sell more investment properties. You're their go-to realtor. So sometimes this is going to take a little bit longer to build that relationship. But look, you're going to be the only realtor having a consistent conversation with them. So your affiliates are very important. Your escrow company, your title officer, your 1031 exchange people. If you're working with someone that does multiple units, a realtor that handles that kind of stuff, if it's not you, these are individuals that all can contribute to the process of contacting these absentee owners and providing you with effective material to send them. What you want to do is have a conversation that's interesting to the absentee owner. So let me give you a quick story. In my lifetime, before I got into residential real estate, I owned some property. I bought a home in Mission Viejo, California, and that realtor never stayed in touch with me. But I met a realtor a couple doors down, and they sold a lot of properties in the area, and we became friends. And one day that gentleman, Rob Robbins, came to me and said, hey, Gene, I've got a rental property on my own. I own a little bit too many. Have you thought about buying a rental? And I was pretty young. I wasn't really in the market, but, it's my neighbor, good guy. So I went and took a look at it, and he offered me a pretty good deal on it. And I went ahead and got a partner, and I bought this rental from him. And what he did was he just serviced it for me. He wasn't the property manager, but he found a tenant, and he was my go-to guy. If I had a problem with the property or I had a problem with the tenant, he would find a new tenant for me. But I collected the rent, and I paid the bills if there were any handyman or that type of thing that had to be done. So he provided rental services and re-rented the property. Well, over the years, I moved from that area, so he rented out what was then my residence, and I bought a few more rental properties. So what Rob always did was he got those properties tenant occupied for me. Now look, when we talk about providing rental services, you get paid for that. You get 6% of the first year's rent in most markets. So he got paid to find the tenant, but he really wasn't providing property management. So here's my disclosure. Check with your broker and your board of realtors on their policy, and then make a decision to provide rental services. See, the conversation that we're having with these absentee owners, again, is to offer to help to service the property. So rental services is we're screening and we're finding tenants. Property management would be if we're collecting the rent, and then from the rent we're paying out all the distribution of payments and repairs and that kind of stuff. I highly recommend not doing property management. It's not necessary. But imagine as you start providing rental services, especially in your own geographic farm, and you're letting people know you provide rental services, that you will help them get that property rented. You're going to make a little bit of extra money. You're going to get a sign up, which is huge. The tenants that you put in that property will eventually buy property, and you could be the realtor helping them. They're going to buy property that they eventually sell, And every time those tenants get ready to leave, you're going to contact the homeowner. Well, that's what Rob did. So over the years, he didn't really stay in touch with me all that much. If I had a problem with the property, he'd get an estimate for me. They'd let me know what it was going to cost to do the repair. They'd get it taken care of. I'd pay the bill. Well, from time to time, Rob would call me and go, "Hey, Gene, your tenant on such and such property just gave notice, and I don't know if you're thinking about selling, but I have a buyer that's interested in that property." I sold 3 of my rental properties using Rob and Raina Robbins in Mission Viejo, California. And the properties really never went on the market because they did have a buyer ready and willing, because they worked that area, to pay market value. It made it easy for me, and they just happened to catch me when I was selling property. So when we're working with investors and absentee owners, my suggestion is mail them a packet to begin with. Mail them something of value that offers services, maybe gives them a 1031 exchange brochure in there, talks about updated rental survey, do an updated rental survey. Make your first packet powerful. Get together again with your affiliates and say, look, here's my list of non-owner occupied properties that I'm working with. You get that from your title person. And I want to send out an effective packet and have them participate, if not pay for the packet that you're sending out to these non-owner occupied, because it's going to benefit them. Think about this from the standpoint of professional referrals, helping these absentee owners if they need appraisals, loan officers, handyman. You're offering a menu of service. You're giving them an updated rental survey. A lot of these property owners may own more properties than the one you're looking at. They may own additional properties. They may want to purchase more properties. Your goal is to send them information so that they contact you for more information and you build a relationship. So now you're probably just sending them something maybe just once a month. But it's always got to be from the concept of thinking like an investor. Think wealth building. Update them on 1030 exchange rules. Talk to them about cash out loans. Maybe you know somebody that's doing units. Maybe they haven't thought about it, but maybe they'd like to 1031 exchange some of those smaller properties for bigger properties. Maybe they have a property that's a problem in a different area that you're not even aware of. See, some of these absentee owners may still be a little bit upside down. They might be reluctant landlords and they just couldn't sell the property, so they went ahead and put a tenant in. They may not realize that they could sell their property even with a tenant in it. But your goal is to become their go-to realtor, to offer a menu of services, to build a relationship so that when they do decide to buy or sell more properties, you're the person they're thinking of. Now look, when you're thinking about your target for absentee owners, obviously you want to target all the absentee owners in your geographic farm. But think about it. Some of those people are going to live close by, and maybe they do service the property themselves. But what about the person that lives in Florida and owns property in California? Or they live in Northern California and they own property in Southern California? Or for that matter, I remember a time where a gentleman called me and he said, I have a property to sell up there on such and such street, and it's not, my tenant just moved out. And when I asked him why he called me, he said, well, I live in Los Angeles, which is like 100 miles from where the property was. And when I came down here, I drove the area and you had the most signs up, so I called you first. And I thought, wow, how lucky was I, because I wasn't doing a good job marketing to him, that I just happened to have several signs up at the time, or I would have never gotten the business. So when you look around and you look at leases and leases that are current and leases that have expired and leases in your own farm, you'll notice that nobody's dominating that. That's why, because nobody's marketing to those individuals. So if they live reasonably close in the area, they might just walk into the local real estate office and pick anybody. Well, they won't do that when you're the person communicating to them, that you're the specialist handling rental properties in their area and that you're available to help them, boom, with a menu of services. So think wealth building, think like an investor, learn a little bit more about investing, see the opportunity in working with tenants, see the opportunity in providing these rental services. Address these non-owner occupied with help from your affiliates. Send initially a nice packet and then just update them every month. Keep your business card in there, make it investor specific, make it information about the area, information about their property, and you'll be amazed how many relationships long term you'll be able to build. And you're going to be the only person, you're going to be the only realtor that's having a consistent conversation. You're going to own that marketplace. Appreciate your time. See you in the next session.